Welcome to Zoom on the Fly. Tonight is the last of a four-part series. We're going to be talking about equipment, lighting, and audio with presentations by John Wright, David Buckner, Jim Ferguson, Mike Paradas, and yours truly, Al Beatty. And we're the Beatties from Boise, Idaho. And we have a really full schedule tonight, so I'm going to turn it right over to John Wright. And just a brief introduction. John is a retired military veteran who now makes his living building computer networks, I guess you could say. And you better clarify that for me, John. But right now, it's all yours, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Al. Yeah, I'm a retired computer consultant that I worked in for over 40 years, and now I spend my days with Project Healing Waters and fly fishing. So that's about it. Nice. What I want to talk about tonight is something called a Raspberry Pi. It's a very small computer. And here's what the Raspberry Pi Foundation said about it. And I think what's noteworthy is the last sentence that I've bolded there. Want to see the Raspberry Pi being used by kids all over the world to learn to program and understand how computers work. That's a pretty noble cause. There's the hardware list of the stuff that you need. And it's kind of skimpy because you really don't need a whole lot. You need a Raspberry Pi 3B or a 4, and only because it gives you a little bit more RAM, and both of those have Wi-Fi on them. So anyway, Pi 3 or Pi 4 will work just fine. And then, of course, your usual computer things, USB, a mouse, monitor, or a TV that accepts HDMI, an HDMI cable. And if you buy a Pi 4, then you're going to need one of the new micro HDMI plugs for about $9 on Amazon. If you're going to use Pi as a standalone Zoom machine, I'll talk about that briefly. Then you'll also need a USB microphone, which are pretty easy to come by. You need a power source and a micro SD card. And there is the Pi. That's what it looks like. That's a 4B. And as you can see over on the right-hand side, this is at the Adafruit site, and they are completely out of stock right now and have been for some time. A word of caution. You can get these on Amazon and eBay and different places, but if you do, you're going to pay 3 times the price. So everybody's gouging right now. And in fact, Adafruit even makes that comment on their site. So one thing that's kind of cool, let me bring up there we go. If you scroll down, there you can see this part right here is their warning about the other vendors. If you're really into simplicity, here's one for you right here. This is a Raspberry Pi with with the keyboard and everything built into it, and all of your ports are on the back. It's really a nice looking little device. And here is all the hardware that you need. This is a Pi that I'm working with right now. And let me just move over there for just a second. The bobbins there just to show you a size reference. But this is the Raspberry Pi. Here's your micro SD card. And this right here is a carrier. Because what you're going to have to do is somehow you're going to have to put the software on that little tiny card. And and the way you do that is by inserting the card in that carrier, then inserting that into an SD slot on your computer or on a card reader. There's the power supply. That's a Raspberry Pi power supply. If you get a 4, you're going to need a little bit more powerful one. You need about 3 amps, 5 volts, as opposed to the normal 5 volt 2 amp, which powers your cell phones. And there's your keyboard and mouse right there. That's a little Wi-Fi device that you can get, and you can get that at Adafruit as well. And it costs you about $10 or $15, and that's everything you need. So there's your computer, your memory, your power, your keyboard, and your mouse, all there in that one little slot. Okay, so let's talk about software. Software is really the easiest part. You need to go out and download something called the RPI Imager, and it runs on Windows, it runs on Linux, it runs on Mac, it runs on just about everything. And when you do, it looks something like this. Okay. And now I'm going to bring mine up. You choose the operating system. And here's all of the different operating systems that you can get. If you don't like that one, you can choose this list of group or operating systems over here. Or if you don't like any of them, you can actually install these operating systems. Whoops, wrong one. Sorry. Go back here. Others right here. You can see you can install Ubuntu and a few other operating systems just as well as the Raspberry Pi. The folks that do this recommend that you use the 32-bit Pi and download it and load it and let her go. So you download it, you run this thing, and you choose your device right here. It comes up. See, I have nothing here because I don't have any chips loaded in my computer. And then you just click on write. But before you do that, you want to click this little gear right here. And that brings up this little window. And that gives you the ability to set the name of your computer. You'll notice it defaults to Raspberry Pi. I set mine to PiCam1, PiCam2, et cetera, et cetera. Enable SSH. Might or might not be necessary. That gives you the ability to connect remotely over a network. Set a username, just like the username on your Windows machine, name and a password so that you can log in. And then this is the real important thing right here. You want to configure your wireless LAN. And if you scroll down here, you see it's asking for something called an SSID. That's just the name of your wireless network. And then the password is the password of your wireless network. So anytime, you join a wireless network, you need those two pieces of information to connect to it. Once you got that all done, you run it and you're ready to rock and roll. And there's just a quick slide of it. So you insert the card into your, once you got it all written, you insert the micro SD card into the Pi. You plug in your keyboard, mouse, and camera into a USB port or to an HDMI port. You got two of them on there. Plug the monitor and the TV into the HDMI port. Plug the power supply into the power port and sit back and let her run. There's not even a power switch to turn it on. It gets all turned on by itself. And if you get into troubles, here's a website that'll walk you through the whole thing. There's a real nice video on that. It even tells you how to connect to Zoom, which I'm going to cover here in just a minute. You can connect your network either using the wireless capability, or I highly recommend you use the Ethernet cable. It comes with a gigabit Ethernet cable, so that you've got good high-speed performance. But you can use your Wi-Fi if you're of mind to, which makes it interesting for some other things I'll talk about in a minute. You can connect to the Zoom, same as any computer. Open your web browser, go to Join Zoom USA. Join with the credentials that Al talked about last week in the little green shield up in the upper left-hand corner. You can see it up there now. And that's it. And just to show you what it looks like, I'm going to bring mine up. Let's see if it's... There it is. Can y'all see that? The blue sky?
Yeah, we sure do.
Okay. This is my Raspberry Pi running. I've connected to it using something called VNC, Virtual Network Computing, so that I'm actually controlling it sitting at my desk from my other computer. But if you want to connect to a Zoom meeting, you go up here to the web browser, open your web browser, and then I've already built a little shortcut. Go right here, Zoom US, and here you go. You enter your meeting ID, you click join, then you enter the password, and you show up in your meeting. And now you've got, if this is your second computer, just like Al did last week or the week before, and you've got two computers running off of two different machines, off of wired or separate Wi-Fi connections, depending on how you want to do it. Okay, pretty simple, really. And like I say, it's those of you that don't know, that's Paul Harvey's favorite expression. Just some things to think about. You can use the Pi in a headless configuration with VNC, which is what I just showed you. How about using the Pi camera module and make a battery-powered Wi-Fi camera that you can take any place you want to go? You can power the Pi with a battery that you use to recharge your cell phone with. I've used it that way, and it works pretty well. One thing I haven't tried yet is to take my Pi with me out on my kayak and try to do a Zoom meeting remotely from my kayak. I don't know, that'll be kind of fun. Yeah. How about a portable Zoom studio that fits in a briefcase? I've got it all laid out in a standard business type case where I can put 3 web cameras in there, that little tiny keyboard and mouse, the Zoom, and just about everything else you need to go, and just pack it up into a briefcase. And that, you talk about your hybrid meetings, that's your way to do your hybrid meetings. It's very nice.
Wow.
You can add OBS Studio to Pi. Yeah, it does run, Al. I've got it running on one of my other Pis.
Awesome.
I haven't done a whole lot of experimentation with it yet to see how quick it is or how good it is, but I should have more information on that later. You can also run cameras off your Pi using Video Ninja. And I don't know if Al's going to talk about that in the future or not, but that's another way to connect a camera to OBS Studio. You can also connect your security cameras to your Pi. That's a little bit more complicated, but it can be done. And I'm sure there's a bunch more other things that you can do with them that I haven't even thought about yet. And that's it on Pi. I got one more thing I want to talk about real quick. There was a question last week or the week before about USBs. So I went out and I found this little slide, kind of a history of the USB. And more important, what I wanted to show you is the difference in the speeds. You'll notice the USB 1 only goes up to 12 megabits per second. The USB 2 only goes to 480. Most of the webcams that I have running use right around 480 megabits per second of bandwidth. So that's why you can only put one on a USB 2 port. USB 3, see what we do? We jump from 480 megabits to 5 gigabits per second. So we've got close to, what is that? Almost 100-fold increase in capability.
Pretty close.
Yeah, and then you go to the 3 super speed plus, and now you're 10 gigabits. So colors are all over the spectrum on these. Most of the 3s I've seen are blue. The 3s Gen 2 are purple, and most of the 2s are either black or white. So that's an easy way to tell, but sure. Check your computer manual and see what it says. So, okay, any questions from anybody?
I'll remove this spotlight if you want. There you are, John. Okay, that's what I wanted, is you back online.
Yeah.
I'll make a comment that I got from one of the board of directors for our local club here in Boise about the Pi. And he said it is a great way to connect a USB webcam to a device that requires HDMI. Example, I have a webcam right now that I would love to use through my HDMI switcher, but I can't. So I checked to find out what it would cost me to get an adapter for it, and the adapters run somewhere between $200 and $350. A Pi costs you, as you just saw what John was talking about, somewhere in the $75 range. You can make yourself an adapter to use a USB into an HDMI configuration.
Yep.
Anyway, anything else, John?
That's pretty much it. I'm sold on the Pis. I've got 7 of them running here. I run my my file servers off of it. I run my media server off of it. It's a very capable machine.
Well, I had never heard of it until you came along, and I seriously thought I needed to get the whipped cream out because Raspberry Pi is what you have on with Sunday dinner. But anyway, so yeah. Now that's one of the other things that's on my list of to-dos, but it's not easy, Gretchen. Don't worry. that I want to investigate further.
So much to do in so little time.
Any questions before we go on into the next part? Okay. David Buckner will not be able to be here tonight. He went on a fishing trip to Tennessee and came down sick. So we're very sorry that he won't be with us, but he made the PowerPoint presentation that I'll share with you. And what I'd asked David to do was to tell me about using a GoPro, because quite frankly, he approached me recently about using a GoPro on Zoom, and I quite frankly, I didn't know anything about it. And I said, well, I don't know too much about it, but it don't seem to me like it would be the thing to use. Well, he came back with this PowerPoint that I'm going to bring up right now, and we'll talk about it just briefly. Okay, and Jack, you should be able to see it says Zoom demonstrations for GoPro on it.
It does.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. Well, that's what David put together for me. What he found he had to do is the GoPro itself did not make a particularly great device for the at the vise tying the fly camera. Really good as a materials camera or a wider view type camera. But he needed to purchase, number one, a larger and better tripod, because the little three-legged jobby he had that sat on a desk didn't work real well. Also had to purchase a macro lens for it. And he needed to basically equip it with a longer cord so he could plug it in, because the batteries would go dead. And then there is a free GoPro webcam app that turns it into a webcam. So that's kind of handy. Here's the picture of the very things he's talking about. The GoPro Hero, the regular USB cable that charges the thing is right there in the center, black with a rubber band around it. And then the black and white one is a 10-foot one that he bought to replace it. It makes it a lot easier to reach a power outlet or a USB place. And then there's the two lenses, additional lenses he had to buy for his GoPro, a zoom lens and a max lens. And I don't know what either one of them are. I would have asked him tonight, but if any of you are really interested in getting into the GoPro thing, David Buckner is the guy to contact, and send your email to me and I'll make sure that he gets it. What we're looking at here is his setup with the fly in the vise and the GoPro on the tripod. That's just another picture of the webcam preview and the zoom preview, which you'll notice that the zoom crops it just a tiny bit more, not much, but very little during the webcam feed. That's the little tripod that he's using, and he's getting a much better one. In fact, I think we're going to talk about it next. Anyway, what he learned, the digital zoom to 2x requires an additional macro lens. We already kind of mentioned that. You need the webcam app that allows the GoPro to become a webcam. He said that's a real positive to try to tie flies with that smaller camera profile and the 5-inch clearance that he easily gets as a work area around it. And given what I have here with this big old Nikon, I have to agree, and it'll be something that I'll look at downstream if this Sony that I've got doesn't work. He additional purchases, there are little mini pictures off to the side there that he had to get was JAWS, and the JAWS he's talking about is actually a clamp tripod kind of a thing that goes on the side of his desks and is kind of tilts in a lot of different directions after clamping to the desk. And the other thing is a USB door that he had to buy to be able to power the thing from the remote location rather than off of the battery. He said the GoPro is expensive for Zoom demonstrations only compared to other options. And quite frankly, Fred offered the absolute best option last week with the manual focus webcam. Does a super job. A laptop and one of those manual focus webcams does a great job. And the GoPro cameras are great for video and picture production.
Al, if I could jump in there real quick with my experience on the GoPro 2. What I've found, I use an Exaco V50, which is a GoPro clone, for about $50 or $100. And they will run as into a USB port as a webcam. What I found to power them with is the same battery I use to recharge my cell phone. It runs it just fine, and it'll run it for 3 or 4 hours. That's what I use when I'm out with my GoPros on my kayak. I power them with that. You can also power them with a 12-volt battery hooked up to a USB connector like you put in your car.
Wow.
Work, like a cigarette plug light.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Just hook your 12-volt battery up to it, and you've got enough power there to last you a month with it.
I'll bet. Wow. So, I wonder that would probably work for a Raspberry Pi too, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. Back to the spotlight and getting ready to move into the equipment that we use. And before I do that, though, I really wanted Jim Ferguson to talk about a microphone that he found recently that I thought had a lot of merit. And let me spotlight you, Jim. Add the spotlight. There we are, side by side. If you can bring that microphone up and talk a little bit about it, I sure appreciate it.
What it is called a Talk Go. It's put out by JLab. And this, when you set it down, it's got its own tripod, but and they extend a little bit. But what you don't point this towards you. What you do is you turn it so that you're speaking into this side as it's angled away from you. And what's nice about this thing is that there's two uses. One is if you're within 3 or 4 feet, like you're tying and you're talking, you set it on one of the settings, and the other setting is if you want to do a conference where you can, pick up sounds up to say 15, 20 feet. So if you're in a board meeting or whatever, it works there. On the bottom of it, you can see it's blue, which means it's on. There's some other buttons there. It's got over here a volume switch or a dial, so you can increase, decrease the volume. And I've got it set up so I'm speaking through it now. Then there's another button that is green, and that tells you you're in the other mode for a larger group. And then there's you can push a button and it'll.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Jim. So I got a question for you. What did that cost you, Jim?
Well, I checked, and I got it at Best Buy, and I checked the price on them because I couldn't remember where the heck I got it. So I finally, when you said you might be talking to me, it's regularly $49.99, and it's on sale yesterday, day before, for $34.99. And it's got a particular model. But if you go on to their website and you go on to their computer accessories and you get to the microphones, you will you'll come across it. And it to me it works pretty good. It's got a couple of different ways you can adjust for height and whatever on the
Sure.
On the tripod.
I wished I would have known this, Jim, when I was getting my microphone for hybrid meetings, because I paid $110 for mine.
Well, what I noticed when I was looking at, the directions are very clear, and, it tells you exactly how to set it up. That was the model number and price. And suggestions on over on this other side on setting it up, and tells you what all the little buttons do for you down there. And all you do is plug it into a USB on your computer.
Right. It's I'm one of the problems with some hybrid meetings, and Gretchen and I ran into this when one that she did in Arkansas, is we didn't have that type of a microphone. We were using the computer itself, and the computer is great when you're standing directly or sitting directly in front of it, and you're within 5 feet of it. And when you break either one of those rules, all of a sudden you don't have any voice. Well, anybody in the room, they can't talk to you.
Yeah. Well, that's what I noticed on some of the presentations people were giving, like they're here, and then when they go over here and they're facing away from the computer, you couldn't hear them.
Yeah, it goes away. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Jim, thank you so much for that update, because that somebody's going to find something cheaper when you already go out and buy something yourself, and we did, and we will share that with you here in a moment. Michael, I'm going to have you chime in here in the middle of my PowerPoint here when we get to the section that I've got set out for you. All right, there we go. And this is just basically a review and some things that I've been asked to talk about that we'll get to towards the end of the presentation. But anyway, let's okay, this is how we got started. 2 years ago. We had a macro focusing rail. We started with that because we already had one for shooting macro pictures for magazine articles and books. That's on the left-hand side there. And we mounted it on a piece of 1x board and lashed that to our tying table. And you can see that I've got some swing arm lamps there going around the camera. I've got 4 of them plus the overhead tying lamp plus the spotlight lamp. So there was 6 lamps. And I'll tell you what, those swing arm lamps with incandescent light bulbs in there, it was like walking into a sauna. And as you can see, all of that stuff, as I added things to our Zoom studio, the cords kept getting more and more and
It
more.
took over.
The cords took over after a while, and it was like snakes in the grass. All I can tell you, it was a real challenge. We have them under control now, by the way. It's called power strips, but at the time we were just adding stuff as we went along. One of the things that you're going to need is a capture card. You have a choice. You can get an Elgato Cam Link for about 120 bucks, and that varies a lot. You can get a less expensive one that only goes up to 1080 for $15. The choice is yours. You can get the best, get the 121, and you're ready for when 4K hits Zoom, or you can buy the $15 one, $18, $20 one, and then purchase a more expensive one when 4K becomes a reality. And that's up to you. I can't say that either one they're better or worse. I've worked with both, and what I'm using right now is, well, of course, I'm using a switcher which has all that stuff built into it. But up until that time, I was running a couple of HDMI capture cards that I got 2 years ago when there was a high demand for them, and they were about 30 bucks a piece.
Al, are you having any problems with bandwidth with that at 4K?
I'm not doing the 4K.
Okay.
There's no way. I don't have it on my Zoom account. My Zoom account is 1080, and it's we pay a pretty hefty price to have that. Anyway, this is how you hook up. You got a camera sitting there. You see, I have an HDMI capture card in the middle with HDMI on one side and USB on the other. Becomes pretty obvious. You run the HDMI cable out of the camera into the adapter, and then the USB plugs into the computer. Now, just a caution, the size of that video capture card makes it tough to plug 2 of them in side-by-side ports. So it's a good idea to get a short extension cable or buy one that already has it. Here's some of the equipment that you can use with this HDMI, or not HDMI, video capture card. And by the way, in the middle is a picture of one that has a built-in short extension cable. I highly recommend getting something like that just because of the access to the ports on the computer. But anyway, you plug the HDMI side in, and that's a PlayStation, TV box, video camera, projectors, digital SLRs. The list goes on and on and on. And out of that, it goes into a laptop. It can be for a Mac or for just a standard PC, either or. Cable connectors. Good idea. Just bottom line is, if you're going to buy any kind of USB connectors, make sure they got a blue plug inside. And John explained to you why. Because you can plug a blue one into an older port, but if you have an older cable and try to plug it into a newer port, you won't get the better speed. Is that right, John?
Absolutely right. Yep.
Okay, great. So get the best, and at least the cable won't be the throttle point.
Al,
Yes.
what's the purpose of a capture card? Because I plug my camera directly into my laptop.
Yeah, yours is a webcam, and it's a USB connector.
Right.
Right. The HDMI is made basically for plugging directly into the port on the back of a television and other things like that. Well, the HDMI capture card converts the HDMI signal, if you will, into the USB that will fit into the computer.
Okay.
Now, it's a lot more complex than that. John, would you want to expand on any of the complexities, or is it just basically a conversion point?
Yeah, basically that's all it does. It just takes a HDMI signal and converts it to USB. They're both serial anyway, so
Correct.
no problem.
Any other questions there?
No, that does it.
Okay, I'm going to give you a heads up. On the left is a USB port, plugs into the computer, and you're supposed to be able to plug in a whole lot of different things to expand a port on your computer. This one does not have a power supply. I got two of them for $12. I thought, Jesus, I'm getting a heck of a deal. I got two of them here I'll give to you because they ain't worth the shipping. I'll tell you that right now. It's what I ended up using, and I've got I either got two or three of them here. I forget. Anyway, I know I've got two of them. It's called a Saberent 10 port powered supply. And the actual HDMI is right down here. And the power supply is even bigger than the ports itself. But it's really recommend getting something that's powered. You'll be unhappy if you didn't.
So you're saying the one on the left is not good because it's not power, it doesn't have a power.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
The
I
one on the right is what you're using because you have a power supply.
you have a power supply and it's just a lot better unit. I paid, like I said, I got two of them for $12 and they're not worth the $12. And then the one on the right, they cost somewhere between $35 and $40. It's just go ahead and get up front, get yourself a really good USB port. You'll need it.
And make sure it's a USB 3 hub too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, let me go back. You notice all the blue plugs in that? Those are USB 3, except for the 3 down. Let me move my right down in this area. You see they're black. Those are for power only. So it's a way of powering lights and some other things. And the other 7 are for actually talking to the computer. Webcam options. I got both. The best one of the bunch is the $30 one that Fred turned me on to, the manual focus. And I'm saying the best one of the bunch for doing what we do, which is close-up work, demonstrating fly tying to people. I also have the one on the right, and it's a great one, but it's focuses all over the place. And what I use it for is my materials camera. You'll get to see that here in a little bit. But I could have used the $30 manual focus one just as well. Lights. These are just LED lights with a clamp to go on the table. And I've got 6 of them around here doing different functions. Different color does the same thing. This is from David Buckner. On the left is a clamp and a tripod that he uses to hold his cell phone. And on the right is the same thing with the light attached to it so that he can put the cell phone in the clamp and have the light coming from the same source as the cell phone. He does a lot of presentations with that. Now we're to the audio options. And a lot of people use their laptop microphone, and we already know what some of the problems are with that. It's a great way to make a presentation when you're close to it. If you're moving around your laptop, it can be a problem. That's one of the reasons I wanted you to see what Jim had tonight, is by plugging in this $50 unit, you can be within 15 feet of it and still be communicating very well. Microphones and headsets. We got a couple of them here. The one on the left has a 3.5 millimeter plug to connect it to the computer. The one on the right is USB. Otherwise, they're basically the same thing. I've got one of the ones on the left, and we've got 2 of those on the right, and they all work very well. The microphones that we're using, the ones on the left are the lavalier mics that we clip to our shirt collars when we come in to go to work. And they run about $20 to $25. And in the hybrid microphone that I paid $110 for, that if I would have been talking to Jim Ferguson, I could have got one for a lot less. Anyway, there it is. If you want one, they're on Amazon and they're still $110. Michael, I want you to talk about how you do a hybrid meeting, if you would, for a minute or so.
Yeah, it won't take nearly as long as as the rest of you guys. Just a little history. Sierra Pacific Fly Fishers, which is who I'm with, we've been doing a weekly fly tying session for many, many, many years. And we were using one of our members' businesses to have our fly tying sessions at. We typically have between 15 and 30 people show up for a fly tying meeting. And shortly before COVID hit, that gentleman sold his business and we lost the ability to meet in person. So what I did was after a couple of months delay, I set us all up on Zoom, and not having any experience with it, it was a struggle. And we've had our ups and downs, but we ended up successful. Had a lot of folks from different parts of the country, aside from just our own people, and they're just sort of spread by word of mouth. And last year, one of our members that works for Facey Medical Group, she got us the use of their one of the rooms in their facility that has a really nice AV system with a couple of gigantic television screens. So now we're back in the in-person tying business. And in order to not lose the people that we had out of town on Zoom, came up with a little cheap system for doing our in-person and remote on Zoom as a hybrid situation. And Al, if you can spotlight me.
There you are.
That's the system that we're using. Okay, we come using a Sony Handycam,
I guess I did.
HDMI out into a splitter, and HDMI into the room TVs, and then HDMI into a video capture card into our Mac with the Zoom. The problem that we have with our current setup, it's not really a problem, it's just the situation. It's a facility that is used during normal hours for instruction. And we have the use of the facility on Wednesday evenings, free of charge, which is really nice. The downside is we have to haul all our hardware in and haul it out at the end of our meeting, which is a little cumbersome, to say the least. But we've got it pretty well figured out. We record and send a video out to all the people that are on our email list, so they, even if they don't come to the session on Zoom or in person, they can watch the presentation at their leisure. And that's about our story.
You're using the computer microphone, is that correct?
Yes, we are using the computer microphones.
Yeah, and we were on with you the other night, and it worked fairly well. I mean, it was a good presentation, I thought.
Well,
Couldn't hear-
I'm gonna look into this one that he was talking about that he got from Best Buy, because that could pick up the people that are out in.
That was the only negative.
That we were, when somebody was talking in the crowd, that pretty well left us out. We couldn't even quite pick up what was going on. So yeah.
Right. So
Oh, go
So
ahead.
the Handycam
No,
is
go-
pointed at the Handycam you used for the fly. Do you have another camera set up to show the audience by any chance?
nope.
Okay.
One of the
It's-
things that I
that
wanted
would
to
be-
comment on that Michael brought to my attention, I did not realize that there was an HDMI splitter available at a reasonable price. I have since looked around for them, and I can't tell you how much that's going to help me down the road with some other things that I want to do. So take note of that HDMI splitter. I didn't know they were available.
Oh, good. You got, well, you've got the manufacturer's name and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I went on Amazon and there were several. It's
Yeah.
you can pay different amounts. Like everything, they'll sell you something for a whole lot of money, and then
I'm
Jim
sure.
Ferguson will come along and get it for half the price.
I'm sure that's what I did.
Yeah.
Just as an aside to the whole fly tying situation, with one of the things I've heard from a number of people is they've looked at a lighting situation to light up the bottom of the fly as it's being tied. What I've just got one light that's an overhead that lights things up reasonably well. Didn't you think, Al, the other night?
It was pretty good. There was a little bit of shadowing. I'll cover that in a minute when I get into tying the fly. I'll take a moment to explain the lighting setup that we use here. But no,
Yeah.
I thought your presentation was a very good one, considering the fact you were just using a single camera and the computer, and it did a good job of doing the FaceTime for you and the fly time with the Handycam.
Yeah, well, as you say, we're pretty loosey-goosey operation, but we do have a lot of fun.
I noticed that.
Al,
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Okay, I have one other quick thing that I was going to get to with the overhead light. One of the things that I found works really nice for illuminating the bottom of the fly is just slide a piece of aluminum foil onto.
Absolutely.
Lights it up very nice.
I've got that in my photography station right now on a magazine article that I'm working. It's exactly how we actually use bounce lighting in there, because we can work around it a little bit better than we can on Zoom.
Mine's very cheap bounce lighting.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Michael.
Al,
Okay, thanks.
Al,
Yes.
I've got a question.
Sure.
What I've noticed now, I've got the picture of Al and Gretchen, and then I've got Michael there, and then there's Alan, and he's also on there on the side there. But is there any way of getting the facial movements coordinated with the sound?
We're going to
There's
get
just
to that
a
in a
little
minute.
lag.
We're going to get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming up on the OBS part of the presentation, and there's other ways to do it. But anyway, is there anything else, Michael?
Nope, that's it for me. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you so much. Okay, switching cameras using the free OBS software. What is OBS? OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software Studio. And just basically what it is a software studio. And tonight, when we get into our fly tying presentation, I'll kind of point out a few things, because we use a combination of OBS and a switcher. But up until I got the switcher a couple of weeks ago, we were using nothing but OBS. Here's how you get OBS. You download it. This is a picture of the website. You can download it, obviously, for Windows, Mac, or Linux. I really recommend that once you get it downloaded and installed, you join their forum. I'm on it. In fact, if you look real careful there in the upper right-hand third, if you will, my name's there. I'm there on a regular basis, and I learn all kinds of stuff just by reading what other people are doing and by asking questions. Scenes and sources in OBS. Okay, well, this is what the screen looks like in OBS after we have, well, you can see right there in the middle is a picture of BT's on the Fly with Women's Connect, the picture of the fly, and WD Dry. Those are all items there. Well, that didn't just appear magically. It has to be built. Go down into the lower left corner. There's a box there. You'll see the little bitty word that says scenes with a red circle around it pointing to a bigger circle above it. When you download the program, that will be empty. Clear down at the bottom, you'll see a plus, a minus, an up arrow, a down arrow. What you do to add a scene is hit the plus key. It'll bring up some screens and you'll put stuff in. And in fact, you can see that Q-quick introduction is highlighted right now. And the quick introduction is what you actually see on the screen there where it says BT's on the Fly with Women's Connect. So in the box next to the So next to the scene, you see another thing called sources. A little circle around sources and the big red arrow going to an exploded version of it, so you can see that. Everything in that big circle or the square next to the scenes is what it takes to build that picture you see of BT's on the Fly with Women Connect. At the very top there, it's a text with FFI Women Connect. Those words are actually typed and built into that slide. WD Dry Fly is built in and put down at the bottom. WD Dry Fly picture is then inserted above that. And last, we put BTS on the Fly and put that at the top. You can build anything you want, but when we say scenes and sources, a scene is something you see. The sources is what it takes to build that. Okay. Kind of hope it does. I hope it's a little clearer than it was when you first saw that. You saw red circles and arrows going everywhere and all of that. Anyway, what do we have here? Well, you'll notice that on the scenes, I didn't circle it or highlight it, but you'll see that A-instructor-laptop is got the little blue line on it. That's a scene. Now we already know that the sources is next to it. So let's look at the big circle. The big circle says, here's what it takes to get the picture of Al on the screen with our website and email address above it. Number one, I've got an audio input. That's so that you can hear me. Number two is a text that I typed in there, website and email, right? And then I positioned those at the top of the screen. And then the last thing, I built the laptop camera into it so that the picture of me was there. So now you go to the other side, and I want you to notice, first off, back over in the left side, scenes and sources, you see it says quick introduction with a Q in front of it, A for the instructor, S for the subject, meaning the fly, and D for the demo materials. Well, how do you get that? That's really handy. What those are is hotkeys that we can push to automatically switch to those different scenes. And how do we do that? We have to build them. And you'll notice in the controls that are in that lower right there, highlighted in the big red circle, down towards the bottom, it says settings. You'll click on settings. That brings you into a 7-function option that you can do: general, stream, output, audio, video, hotkeys, and advanced. And you notice that I got a red arrow pointing to the hotkeys at the second from the bottom. And then this is actually a picture of 3 of the 4 hotkeys that I programmed in. And all you do is, for the A instructor laptop, what key do you want to use to switch to that? I use the letter A. Really, really original, you know. And the demo materials, I use the letter D. Quick introduction, I use the letter Q.
Just a word to the wise, when you use those letter keys, if you're doing a meeting and you want to respond to chat, you can't type into chat because it thinks you're hitting those keys.
Yeah, that's
the downside to that.
but that's the reason that's an old slide that I made a couple of years ago when I was teaching another Zoom class. And what I use now are the function keys, F1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Because every time if I type George, I would change to everything under the sun. You cannot believe how much it would drive you crazy. And it took me, you know, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. It took me a while to figure out that maybe if I use the function keys, it would be better. But
Al, I spent a week trying to figure out why my screen kept changing every time I hit.
Oh, you did the same thing?
Where were you when I needed you?
Yeah. Anyway, you guys got the picture. Anyway, it's use the function keys and saves yourself a headache. Now to use.
Look at that smile.
Hey, I had so many pictures of me, I had to keep track of which one was for what, you know, so just don't say anything about the wise grin. Anyhow, after we've got all this stuff built in OBS, we need to get it working in Zoom. See where it says on the right-hand side, start virtual camera. You click that, and that starts the virtual camera so that when you sign into Zoom, oh, it's not working. Why is that? Well, that's because it was working before on the HP wide vision high definition. In other words, the laptop camera. I have to go to select OBS virtual camera, click that so that it comes up with OBS feeding the camera into Zoom. But we're still not there. Look at that. It's not a video feed of us, it's our picture. If you look right down in the lower left corner, second over, that says start video, and there's a red slash through it. You probably are all familiar with it because you turn your video feed off and on all the time when you're on Zoom, especially if you're eating a sandwich in front of the Zoom, you decide to turn it off so we can't watch you. Okay, and that's fine. Well, so what we have to do is turn that back on. Okay, and now I make it in. That's the same picture that we had back over in OBS is now feeding into Zoom with the address from the website and the email address at the top. So you can see how it all gets into Zoom.
Al, if you get anybody out there using Linux, there are some issues with Linux on virtual camera that I'll be more than happy to help anybody with if they want or they need.
Thank you, John. So if any of you are working Linux, John Wright is your go-to guy because I can barely spell the word, let alone know what to do with it. So let's see, okay, this looks like a great thing because it does a heck of a job of switching things around. Could anything go wrong? Well, yeah, it can. Audio sync problems and the multiple scenes are always on. We'll talk about audio first. Here is when I first hooked this computer up 2 years ago to OBS to Zoom, I had a bad sync problem. In other words, my mouth would move and then the voice would start. Yeah. And it was always out of whack, never would line up. Well, here's how you fix it. There's a menu at the top, like it is in all things on computers. It says file, edit, view, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you notice that I've clicked the edit button and it brings up another button that says advanced audio properties. When I came into this, everything was 0. But you notice where I have a red circle? Through trial and error, I just kept clicking the up arrows until I got the audio and the video to sync with each other. And I had to build in a 230 millisecond delay between the picture and the audio to get them synced up. That's all you do. And it's just a matter is if you can click a mouse and click an up arrow or a down arrow, you can get it synced. And that's all it's to it.
Al, you use OBS for your audio as well as your video?
No,
Okay.
but you have to, if you're going to sync it up, okay, my audio is going straight into my computer. The video is going through OBS over to Zoom. So it's a longer track for the video to get to Zoom than it is for the audio, because one is a straight feed and the other one is a dogleg feed. So that's why I had to build in a lag to get the two to come together.
Okay, yeah. What I am seeing now on Zoom is I'm seeing a lag on you. I see your lips move, and then your voice is a little bit behind it. And I was wondering if that was a cause.
It could be. I haven't. I can't tell you about that right now. I didn't notice that. But if I've got a lag, I'll go to work on it when we get through tonight. Let's
Okay.
see. Okay. The scene's always on. Now you already know that when you see your picture on Zoom with your laptop, that's the only thing that's on. And if you decide to turn on the fly, you have to go to the menu, click on it, select the other camera, your webcam probably, click on that, and in about 2 seconds, the fly comes on the screen. That's turning one off and turning the other one on. Well, OBS is instantaneous changes. Why is that? because all of them are feeding at the same time. They're all there. It makes no, you click on one, you click on the other, it's instant change. And that's all done via software. And that is a heck of a strain on a processor. If you have a standard computer, which is usually for internet and email and that kind of stuff, with a standard processor, you're going to crash it. And I did. The one I was using for this particular presentation crashed in the middle of this presentation. And I had to finish the presentation with a cell phone. We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
And it cost us a $1,600
$1,600 to get a computer that would the processor would handle all this stuff. If I would have known then what I know here, we would not have had to buy a $1,600 computer. There's another option. It's called Black Magic. And there are a whole bunch of Black Magic switchers and things that, from Complete Studios to the small mini that you see right here. The mini is $300, runs 4 cameras, switches them instantly. And you can run that into a standard computer with a standard processor, no problem. The reason is that the computer thinks there's only one camera there because all of the brains and the switching is going on inside of the Black Magic box. Now, the one we got is next one down is called the Mini Pro. Costs $500. It runs 4 cameras. It will also live stream without the need for a computer. And I think this next one is what Jack Gillis has got. And his is a Mini Extreme. They run about $1,200, runs 8 cameras. It will live stream. And Jack, it probably does a whole bunch of other stuff too. So we'll
Yeah,
take
there's quite a bit you can do with it, from media players to videos to recording through it as well with a standalone disc.
The thing I noticed about it, and I really haven't investigated it very far yet, I may very well be able to eliminate OBS and do all of it through the Mini Pro switcher, because you know all the slides that I build and the recipes for flies and all that stuff could be done with the switcher and just switch that way. Is that right, Jack?
It is. I do not use OBS.
Yeah.
When I'm multi-streaming, I use Restream, and I can go out. I think you can go out to up to 32 different websites, actually.
Awesome. Okay, and the option that we chose, this is what they look like. The Mini for $300 looks almost identical to the Mini Pro for $500. And the only difference is on the right-hand side, you'll see a series of keys on one that the other one doesn't have. And all that's for is for live streaming. And that's what the end of it looks like. And I've got cords plugged into all those jacks. You know, no reason to get into trying to explain to you what all that is. If you get one, I'll help you get it set up, or Jack can help you get it set up, whatever the case may be. Now, we've gone through all of this. Before I go any further and start talking about fly tying, which is what we're really all about in the first place, are there any questions? Now, you already know how I build these things in OBS. There it is in OBS. Easy Muddler. Grab your cameras, take a picture if you want the recipe, while I get over here and get some materials kind of squared away. Okay, somebody asked about lights underneath and all that stuff. Was it Jerry? I think it was. Anyway, this is a fly with a big fly tying light above it, and that's it. The problem with it, it shows pretty good, but when I reach my hand in, it blocks the light, and you get a shadow under the fly. If you have lights coming in from underneath and you reach in, it's still being lit so you can see all around it. And it's up to you whether you think that that's important or not. Anyway, getting back to the muddler, I'm going to move into the materials. It's got 2 materials plus thread. And I've got soft tackle and checkaboo right here. And I'll just lay the thread over there at the tying desk right now. I've already pulled out a couple of feathers, so I'll just set them over there. Notice that I always prepare everything ahead of time. If you're going to go to the FFI show and demonstrate, be prepared. The last person, the last thing that people want to see when they come to a demonstration is you digging around in your bag trying to find a hook. Have this stuff set out, show them the materials. Here's the hooks I've already got out that I'm going to be using. I'll set them over there. Get this out of the way. I've already sprayed everything down with Static Guard so it doesn't stick to me real bad. And we're going to be using deer hair tonight. And I want you to notice the piece of hair that I've got. Now, some of you have seen this before, so I apologize for being repetitive, but here's a picture of a deer hide. Dark hair down the backbone, a little bit darker on either side there. That's for wings and tails and humpies and wolves and stuff like that. The lighter colors right down in here and here is for spinning. Let's take a look at this. This is up close to the backbone. You can see that there's a lot of dark in here. As we get down into here, we're getting down into the rib area, and this is for spinning. All of it can be spun if you're spinning down on the very base of it. So anyway, setting all that aside, let's get back to the fly. And we've got another camera that we've added. I don't know whether we're going to like it or not, but we're able to look at the other side now too from time to time. So we'll be looking back and forth at that. But for now, I'm going to take the focus fly out of the vise, pick up one of the hooks that I already got prepared in a clip. By the way, you don't need to have these clips like I've got. They're expensive hackle pliers. You can go to the craft store and get clothespins that are designed for what do they call them? Doll houses. They're very small. You got one there, Gretch? Yep, that's it. There you go. Those will work really well, and they're about $10 for a pack of 50. That'll keep you going forever. And you can put hooks in there and materials and whatever. Thank you, sweetie.
Yeah.
All right. Oh yeah, that is okay. And there's a plastic one, and it's even smaller yet. So very handy thing. There's no reason you can't be organized when you get ready to do a demonstration on Zoom. All right. And we're going to talk about something in the fly tying arena. We're totally away from Zooming except as a medium to bring it to you all. And that is the problem with all of these flies is a thing called material creep. I want to back up. I'm in the wrong spot. I'm using the thread to identify the delineation marker between body here, hackle, which is deer hair, and head right up here. And I do not want any of the material from the body to sneak forward and start blocking the area that I need to put the hackle and the head on. So that's called material creep when it starts sneaking forward. And we don't want that to happen. And I also want this to be nice and smooth. So the first way we stop material creep is we never return to the starting point. You don't do that. Let me trim this off. If you think you're in the right place, back up. Now, you're going to see why I need to do that in just a moment here. But first, let's get a feather out. Another thing mistake I often see people do, let me run to the back here. I think this is a mistake. You can agree or disagree, but they'll tie their tail material on like this. And then they'll come in and cut it off. And then they've got a bump there that they got to cover up. And if they're doing it with dubbing, no problem. It covers up just fine. But if you're trying to do a floss body, like we're doing here, covering up that bump is less than easy. So we're going to have the tail the same length, but we're going to tie it in right there. Good. And I'm going to make sure that I get a good placement of touching turns so that I continue to build my body. Get right to the back there. And now I'm just going to come forward. And I'm going to stop right there for a moment because I want you to notice that when I pull this up to trim it, in fact, let me zoom in just a little bit there. You can see the space that I have right there. Had I tied that in all the way forward, when I trimmed this, the material would have moved forward. And as it is now, when I trim it, those trimmed ends fall right on that dividing marker, if you will, the delineation point between the head and the body. And we won't be causing a problem now. What I don't want to do is I'm getting ready to tie on the wing. I do not come all the way back there. I'll have the same problem. My wing waist will move into the area set aside already for the hackle and the head. So I am just going to tie this on just like that. And again, I'm tying it on back a ways so that when I trim the waist,
Throw this in the way.
oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, dear. I'm going to tie that on so that the waist also does not move forward. All right. Now, we can continue tying with floss, or we can switch to another thread. I'm just going to, in the interest of time tonight, we're going long. I'm just going to advance the floss, and I'll tie with it in front of the body material. Under normal conditions, I would put a couple of turns of red floss right there. What I'm doing is I'm reaching in here to get a bundle of hair for the hackle. And I'm just going to move off camera to get rid of the waist here. Yeah, there's all this crud and stuff in here. I need to get rid of that. I don't want it in the fly itself. So I'll be off camera just a moment, getting rid of that.
Whoops. I was trying to, which one is that one?
That one is number 2 down below.
Nope.
See now, and that brings it back.
Oh, I need to go to that camera.
That one's a number 3.
Oh, okay. Because see, when you were cleaning it, I could have gone to
Oh,
that
that's a
camera.
good idea. Yeah. We're figuring out all this new stuff, guys. It's
Sorry.
literally was hooked up earlier this week, and this is Gretchen's first trip with it. And I've only run it 3 or 4 times. So
I've been busy working on remodel. I haven't had a chance to be down
yeah,
here.
I was telling them all about that a few minutes ago. Anyway, we'll get this into the stacker. And I don't want any wise comments from the peanut section about my stacker. That's been with me for 40 years and it isn't for sale. I had a guy on a Zoom call this last winter, tried to buy my set of stackers and he was disappointed. Anyway. All right, we'll just get this set for about what we want. Now I'm going to trim all this off because what I don't need is all this long junk here getting in my way. So I'm just going to give myself about that much space. Take and squirm that down around the hook a bit. Take a couple of snug turns. Third one, let go and spin.
I do have a comment here from John Wright that I'd like to share if you haven't looked at your chat. John thinks it's important that people understand how complex things can get. Gretchen is acting as a producer for your video, and I have found doing things as a single person is very difficult. But to make it a lot easier, that is true.
We make it a lot easier just because we're working together, but it is very definitely that way. Even if you have just a single webcam and a laptop, like Fred was doing, it would be a lot easier to have someone over there figuring, okay, Fred's getting ready to do this. It's time to go to the other camera, and you click it for it instead of him having to say, well, just a minute, now let me switch cameras. And then he looks around to find the camera and switch it. And with someone doing all that for you, it's a lot nicer.
But I'm not doing a very good job of it
Oh,
tonight.
we're having too much fun, Gretchen. Never mind.
I gotta learn all of these new things he's got.
Anyway, now I'm going to get another bundle of this hair. I've been trying a lot of spun hair stuff here. Look at all my lighter color stuff. It's gone. Jesus, this is pretty bad. Well, I'll get this now. I'll get back over at the vise. I'll set it in place to spin it. 3 snug but not tight turns. Get rid of the waist. All right, and that looks pretty good. I've got room for another bundle of hair. All right.
Cutting that hair right before you spin it on that second bunch was a real eye opener.
I'm sorry, what?
When you cut the long ends of the hair off
Yeah,
before you spin it,
yeah.
that was a real eye opener.
It sure keeps the stuff from tangling over everything else.
And it makes a heck of a lot easier to trim later on too.
Oh, Jesus, no kidding. We're going to be doing that in just a second here. Okay, now I'm going to spin this last one. 3 snug but not tight turns. Trim off the waist. And there we are. Notice that this time, though, I left the butts fairly long, so I have something to grab to finish off and do the whip finish and all that junk. Let's pull that out. And I'll use my whip finish tool. You say it's a half hitch tool now. Well, it is. It's a half hitch tool and a whip finish tool. That was 2 half hitches. Now we're going to do a whip finish. 2-turn whip finish.
And that's a homemade half hitch tool too.
Yeah, that's another thing I've had for about 30 years. It's not for sale either. My fly tying tools and my wife and dog are not for sale.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, I bet you are. All right, now it's time to trim this thing. Now, what we usually do is we'll tie up a bunch of these ahead of time and do all the trimming at once, because what we do is, let's go back, is we'll bring a small cookie sheet and set it under the vise so you can catch all the stuff that's going to be flying everywhere here in a minute. And I'm going to have to clean my camera after I get done, but that's just the way it goes. Anyway, so notice that I've turned the fly over in the vise, and I'm just going to make a few trims right straight along the bottom. So that's pretty flat. And now I get to decide at this point, do I want the collar on the bottom or not? And I don't like the collar on the bottom. I like to fish this in the surface film with fly sink on the back of the fly, and
On the Jefferson.
on the Jefferson, of course, and grease up the head so it's part in the water and part on the water, and it's deadly. Now I'm going to set this at a slight angle and just start rotating the vise. So you get the head shaped up pretty quick. Now we've got this junk back here. One of the reasons that I cut that off is because if I try to reach in here and trim this right back up against that hackle, oh boy, I might get lucky, and there I lost one. But if you'll take your scissors and just push everything back and slide the scissors in there, the only thing that ends up in there is the stuff you want to get rid of. Push back the hackle, come forward and cut the hair. Are they able to see what I'm doing, Gretchen?
Yes.
I can't see. Okay.
Yes.
Boy, what a mess. Wonder how much of this stuff that I've got on the camera. Well, I'll worry
It
about that
doesn't
later.
look like much.
Doesn't look too bad.
No.
Oops. And there you've got it. A muddler, it's got a pretty balanced head for one that I just freehanded. If you really want to make sure that your muddlers always end up consistently even, you don't trim them round like I did there. You take and cut them flat on the sides and the top and the bottom, so you have a square, and then you round it off from there. And it's a lot easier to cut even lines straight than it is to do a circle over a fly and cut it even. But questions, the fly's done.
Hey, Al,
Yes,
I use a dust buster when I'm doing deer hair.
that's a damn fine idea, dust buster.
I mean, it's, yep, and if you trim and use the dust buster each fly, you have less junk laying around, so.
That's a great idea. Now, one of the things I'll give you a heads up on, this is a basting brush from the chef store. It's absolutely the best thing for cleaning up hair because a paintbrush has got two stiffer bristles and it flips the hair everywhere. This is soft enough that it will sweep up pretty good. I got most of it swept up anyway. Anyway, but the basting brush, that works real well. And questions?
Yeah, I did. It's not a question. Am I live? I can't tell if I muted myself or not.
You're good. Oh, now you muted yourself.
Sorry.
There
No,
you go.
no. Okay, there we go. So back to that comment that was made about where you, before you actually spun the deer hair and you trimmed it,
Yeah,
you know, that was really clever. I've not used that, but what I do is when I cut my deer hair, I actually cut it in little short chunks, maybe a ½ inch long is all. So that when you spin it, you don't have anything sticking out. It's very, very compact and you don't have stuff sticking out all over Kingdom Come. And I actually technically tie it on parallel with the shank of the hook before I start to spin instead of kind of cross hook.
sure.
And that way you don't have that mess sticking out all over. You've already started with a compact amount of deer hair.
Sure. I've got a question for all of you. It doesn't look to me like I have a lag on my voice, but John Wright is saying I've got lag. Do I have lag between the voice and the video?
Not here. You look sound
Okay.
good.
John, I
good
was
here.
noticing lag on yours tonight. Is it possible that the lag you're seeing on mine might be what you're having trouble with there on yours?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's mine on my side. I think it's a network speed and I'm going to work on that.
Well, I can tell you what network speed for me, I had enough of a problem and we live here in an area where we don't at least have access to fiber optic. I had to rewire my house to be able to get the speed up to the point that I needed to have it at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm running a gigabit network downstairs here. So I'm not sure what's causing it, but it's good. There's something going on. Do you see a lag on me when I'm talking?
Yeah, I did tonight. I did, but why don't you put it back on and I'll get you back on. I'll spotlight you while you're taking your picture off. Okay, you got add spotlight. Okay, there you go.
Okay, 1, 2,
Let's
3,
talk.
4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Test out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're about 150 milliseconds out. It looks to me like.
Okay.
Uh.
I'm going to have to look into that and see if I can figure out why that's happening because this isn't just the only call. It happens on all the Zoom calls I do. So
Right.
Does it have anything to do with Linux? And I'm not trying to be a wise guy. I don't know anything about Linux, and that's the difference between us and most everybody else. I think most everybody else is using Mac or a PC.
I don't know, but you know what? Next week or the next time we get together, I will run it on my Windows machine. Actually, the same machine, just run Windows instead of Linux, and we'll see what happens.
Sure. Okay.
Hey, Al, how do you fish that fly and where?
Okay, well, we fish it 3 ways. I'll I'll grease it up and fish it like a hopper. I mean, it's everything's greased up. The other way is to sink it, and sometimes even with split shot, and high stick it through a run. But the way that's really the deadliest is to grease up the front part and put fly sink on the back part so that it sets in the surface film. And well, here, let's go back to
Chuck it under the willows.
the fly, and it actually sets
On
Mm.
the fly.
in the water like that, so that
So what are you imitating?
I'll tell you what I think it's imitating is that's big when I'm fishing it in and out of the film, as I call it, or in the surface film hanging there. It's in the sizes of, I'll go as small as 16, but most of the time it's 12s and 14s. And I think it just looks like a crippled something or another.
Okay,
I
all right.
don't, it just catches me a heck of a lot of fish. And I mean, even on
Yeah.
the spring creeks.
Yeah, I was thinking just put a fluorescent green ball right in the butt of that thing. It'd be a great diving caddis.
Mm.
Yeah, it's and another thing I wanted to talk about, we're going back to Zoom, but we're talking about fly tying, is we already talked about why we have the backgrounds that we do for exposure reasons and for automatic focus reasons and all that stuff. But what you don't want to do is start trying to tie a fly with a lot of green in it against a green background. What you do is if the fly is supposed to have green in it and you're using a green background, you use red or something else and you narrate to the crowd. I normally use green. However, for photographic reasons, I'm using red tonight. And that's all you got to do. Because anybody can change thread colors, but I'll tell you what, some of the colors will just really clash like crazy with whatever background you get. I've got one thing now to finish up the night, unless there's more questions, comments.
Well, I have a question, but it might not be. After Fred's presentation, I ordered a webcam with a manual zoom. So, and I've got it set up. So I'd like to, before you get off, I don't know that everybody needs to be here for this, to look at it and see if you think it looks like it works well enough.
Let us, right now, let's do a
Okay.
spotlight of you and let's take a look at it. And Fred,
Okay,
are
so
you
I'm
ready to
gonna-
comment?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to switch to that camera. There we go. So now let me put some lights on the subject. So I think that's too bright, but there's my. So when I put the bottom light on, it seems like maybe it's too bright.
No,
It's not.
That's good.
It's better. The
Okay.
bottom light is better.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot better with the bottom light. Do you have any different colored background by chance?
I don't, but I need to go. Whoops, this is automatic turn
You
off.
lost your bottom light. There you go.
Yeah, it has an automatic turn off. I don't, but I need to go to Hobby Lobby and.
But
get one.
anyway, that looks great, Susan. God, I sure wouldn't be sad about that. That looks really good.
Turn off your
Okay.
top light.
Pardon?
Turn off your top light.
Turn it off?
Yeah.
Well, I can actually turn it down too. Is that better? And I also could get more of a side light in there. Oh, that's no good at all.
Susan, try moving the camera a little closer to the fly.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have to refocus now a little bit too.
Okay.
You're also getting shadow without not enough light.
Well, this one I
Right.
can turn up. The one on the top I can turn up easily because it's just a finger. But it seems like it's too bright. But maybe this one.
Yeah, you need more bottom light, I think.
Yeah, the bottom
Well-
light and Susan, your background is a little bit on the light side. And
Yeah,
right.
I need to, like I say, I need to go to Hobby Lobby and get a
Yeah.
different background.
remember the process we went through. You take the fly, and you take in your cell phone to Hobby Lobby and you start taking pictures of the fly against colors until you got one you like. And that
Yeah.
one, that I can
Best
tell you right
idea
now,
I've
that
ever
is
heard.
that's a light gray, isn't it?
It's actually white.
Okay, it's white.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we talked about a white background and the problems that you have with it, and you're experiencing some of those problems. You'll do much better if you get something that's close to that 18% grayscale we talked about. And the way you do that
Right.
is just take a cell phone and fly to the store and buy your stuff based on the pictures you take.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
this
that
was
looks-
a piece
that
that I
looks gray
bought
to me.
for other reasons.
I'm sorry, somebody else was saying something. I'm sorry, Susan.
Yeah, your background looks gray to me, not white.
Well, it's a piece of white foam core, but I bought it for something else. I didn't buy it for this. But it just seems like the camera is not as clear. I guess the deer hair, I guess you can see it pretty good. So, okay.
Susan, you got two things that are different. Are you comparing it to the picture that we're sending you?
Well, no, because I know better, right?
Okay, well, there's two things. Number one, you are using probably a Zoom account that's a standard account.
Yes.
So that's 360p instead of what I'm sending 1080.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, it is not possible to have a $30 webcam
Right.
be as sharp as something else.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But for me, this is
It's going to do an excellent job.
Well, thanks. This is as much as I'm going to attempt to do, because everything else is, I'm not that techie, but for me, this is a step up from using my cell phone. Right.
I like it.
Well, I think it looks
Okay.
wonderful.
All right.
Yeah, for your
Awesome.
purpose,
Thank
if you just change out the background color and put a little more light on it, you'll be fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jack
Agreed.
just nailed it.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you spotlight my device?
Where is Jim? Oh, okay, there it is. I got it. I sure can. There you are.
Okay, what I've done is, and this is a tool you guys can make yourselves. You know, when you put on a hackle and pull down as a throat,
Yeah.
and to keep it, especially if you're going to mount a fly in a frame, to keep it down, all it is clips that are attached to an index card that fits over there, and then it will narrow down that throat.
That looks good. It's a good way to saliva it up a little bit or other moisture it in and put
yeah.
the thing over it and let it dry.
Right, it's just a 3x5 card. Just set it down over, and then now I do have an underwing so that you can't go all the way back. But even a body, when you're doing a body hackle, you can do this over the whole body. And the way these clips are made, that section right in here just fits over the shank of the hook, so that it really allows you to get that hackle down.
Very good tip, Jim. Thank you.
Al, I have a question. How do you
Okay.
spotlight someone?
Say this again, please.
How do you spotlight someone?
Okay. I'm the host, so I can spotlight, and the co-host can spotlight. There's another option, but here's the way you do it. You move your cursor over the picture or the video feed of the person you want to spotlight. For example, I'm going to spotlight Jack Gillis. You'll notice in the upper corner, there is a mute blue thingy, and then there is a 3 dots. Click on the 3 dots, and there'll be a drop-down menu. And now Jack is spotlighted, and all I have to do then is remove the spotlight. On your side of it, when you do the same thing and you're not the host, the only thing you can do is pin. And pin only affects your video feed. For example, Jerry, if you wanted to see a full screen of just you and your lovely bride, then you would click those 3 dots and you'll fill the screen and the rest of us are gone.
Al,
Okay,
also,
thanks.
I think
I
you
got
have to
that.
have 3 or more on the Zoom call to spotlight as well.
Absolutely. Jack is totally right. You got to have 3 or more. And the spotlights, you can go up, I think it's 9. I don't remember for sure, but you can spotlight up to 9 people. But a lot of the people where you see like, the guy from Orvis and Tim Flagler. I can't think of the guy from Orvis's name right now. But anyway, they do a lot of things they call a tie-off, where there's 2 of them on screen, filling half each. Well, all you do is they spotlight them both. And,
Okay, thanks. Got it.
and that's how it's done.
Tom Rosenbauer.
Tom
Thank you.
Rosenbauer.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom, I wasn't trying to forget you. It's just an old guy doesn't always remember real well.
If you're like me, it's been the next hour going to look it up if I can't remember.
Isn't that the truth? Oh my God, yes.
And Tom's going to be on the Thursday night fly tires for Omaha here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, great. Let us know. We'll be there.
Yeah, Tom also, Al has approved using all Orvis videos, fly tying videos for the FFI video library,
Awesome. Well, before
which
we
is
sign out,
huge.
big. Also, Fred, before I go to the tip of the week, we don't have a lot of people here, but you have some potential demonstrators for the FFI show. You might share with them when that show is in November.
The show is, I'm gonna get this wrong, Jack, but I think the 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Correct.
All right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. And if you're interested in tying as a demo tire, please send me an email, flytierefred@gmail.com. That's FLYTYERFRED@gmail.com.
Fred, I got a guy that ties for us, Mike Kelly, and Al, you know him. I
Yeah.
think he would make a great addition to the FFI's tying.
He'd be he's a good demonstrator. I can't recommend him highly enough, but you'll need to do your vetting process that you're going to do with everyone, but he does a good job.
Yeah. So I'll get his email address to you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll go to the tip of the week. The tip of the week, the laptop hard boot. I've already talked to Jack about this. We have computers around here, probably more than a lot of people. We each have one by our EZY chair. We've got our office computers, and then we've got some other computers that we use in the Zoom studio. This week, Gretchen turned her computer on and she got the black screen of death, and there was absolutely no way to bring it back. So we were sitting there trying to decide whether to buy another computer, which we both hate to do because setting one up is a real pain. She says, well, I'll go to the guys down the street. There's a computer repair store down the street from us and see what they have to say. And they looked at it, and the guy reached over and he pushed down on the off button and held it for a count of 20 and let it back up, and it was fixed. It's called a hard boot. Now, some of you probably already know this. I didn't know it, and mine was starting to cause trouble, and I gave it a hard boot, and it's like a new computer. So take the hard boot. Don't have a darn thing to do with fly tying, but not always do our tips have anything to do with fly tying.
And you can't just hit the off button or the power button, because that's what I was doing. That doesn't do it. You have to count to 20.
You have to hold it down for a count of 20. And
Yep,
that's
it's actually called technically a cold boot. You actually shut the whole thing down and remove power from everything, and that resets the CPU and the RAM and everything else and reboots it for you. So anything you got hanging around that's been garbage and junked and everything else, it's all gone, and you bring it back up.
Yep. Today I had they keep trying to get me on edge, and I don't want to be on edge. And today they put it came on my screen and I could not get rid of it. And I powered it off, powered it back on. It was still there. So I had to do the hard boot, got rid of it.
Yeah, we're dangerous now. Our computers are actually working most of the time now because of that. So you guys that already knew about it, great. But we're just a couple of old people that learned something new, and we share whatever we learned with all of you.
But I might forget it tomorrow.
Well, don't worry about it. It's fixed today.
Hey,
But I assume you don't
Windows-
lose anything when you do that. You don't lose anything that's.
No.
Huh.
No,
Wow,
no.
thank you.
Not at all.
Susan, at our age, we don't care if we do lose something.
Hey, if you use
don't
Linux,
know
you
if
don't
we
have that
lost it.
problem.
That's true, yeah.
Can't remember what you had on anyway.
Good point.
That means you can hide your own Easter eggs.
There you go. That's it. Absolutely.
I see that Jack Gillis is sending us a feed of all of us. He must be feeding another computer into his switchers. That's what's going on, Jack?
Yeah, that's my primary computer and it acts as camera number 8.
Oh, well, look at that. Huh.
Anyway, tonight was probably the last time that I'm going to use screen share to do PowerPoints, because there's another way you can do it by plugging one computer into another. And that's what I'm going to be working on in the next few
Good
days.
Lord.
If we could figure out where to put this other computer, and I suggest we're gonna have to have a platform
Good
on the
idea.
ceiling
Good
and set
idea.
it up there.
There you go. Yeah, good idea.
Do you have one in your garage yet?
Good idea. You know, we could get some kind of a remote going there, Jim. Hey, if you guys don't have anything else going, it's time for Midsummer Murders, guys.
Okay. Well, thanks
right.
again for
Hey,
all
thank
you
you.
do.
Thank you. Now,
Star Trek is
please,
coming.
anybody that wants to practice before they go on with Fred or get evaluated by Fred, we're here. We're not going fishing for another week, so maybe 2 weeks at the most, but we'll be here. So if anybody wants to practice, we're here through the day.
The floor's coming in the 22nd.
Right.
Al, this is Jerry. What would be a good time to call you tomorrow?
Let's put together a 2 o'clock deal with my time, 1 o'clock yours.
Okay.
Send me an
Okay.
email to remind me because I might forget.
Okay, I'll send you an email. Yeah,
Okay.
we just talk on the phone. I just want a little bit of a conversation with you.
Well,
What's
I'd
going on?
rather do it via Zoom if that's all right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll set up Zoom at 2 o'clock. I'm going to send you a link. You send me an
Okay.
email in the morning. I'll send you back a link.
Okay, and that'll be 1 o'clock my time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
cool.
Anything else,
All right.
anybody? All right. Good night,
Thanks,
guys.
Al.
Cool.
Thanks again.
You bet.
Thanks, Al.